Hello everyone, Mike here. Welcome to this brand new episode of High Heels of Bitcoin series. To be honest, I love talking to all crypto ladies. I think they are all great, but this time something really special. My guest today is Leah Jonas from Celsius Network. So, without any further ado, let's get started. Hello Leah, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Well, I'm pretty good. So, thank you for joining me on this High Heels of Bitcoin episode. I'm glad to have you.
Yeah, I'm awesome. It's awesome to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so basically, let's start with some little intro of your person,
hmm
some form of self introduction. So, how few words, maybe a few words about yourself, about your background.
Yeah, so I'm Leah Jonas. I am the head of global partnerships for Celsius Network. I've been in crypto for quite some time now, a few years. I did tech for about 7 years before that, and yeah, I kind of moved up the ladder at Celsius. I've been there for about 2.5 years. And that's really like the most important part of my life. So I don't. It's pretty much all crypto.
Yeah. So, and how did you find out about crypto, about blockchain? Because sometimes people learn about blockchain, not crypto, not Bitcoin. Of course, for the most of us, it's Bitcoin. But was it like you
Yeah.
found it on the internet? Maybe some friend introduced you.
Yeah, so I was living in Denver at the time, and basically one of my friends works for a VC, and I was, doing some on and off work with them, and they were investing in crypto, and she was like, one of my most trusted friends, really a mentor to me in a lot of ways, and she was like, "You've got to check this out. It's really cool." And I have been encountering emerging tech for years at that point, and I was like, okay, it's just going to be another like, technology that's hyped up or exciting to Silicon Valley and really nothing else. But I read books. I read like the first 5,000 Years of Debt by David Graeber, which kind of like reorganized my idea on like what money was, digital gold. And ultimately, I started going down the rabbit hole when I realized that this tech was something that was really hugely beneficial, not first to the westernized world, but actually first to the developing world. Like it was the only one I had encountered in all my years that wasn't first beneficial to some dude in Silicon Valley. It was actually the antithesis of that. So I went down the rabbit hole. I moved to New York, and shortly after moving there, I met our founder, Alex Mashinsky, at some random meetup, to be honest. And the rest is kind of history. I just jumped down the rabbit hole from there and kept going, and here I am.
Yeah, and now you run in a Celsius network. We will talk, of course, about DeFi later, but I wanted to ask you about this project because it's popular in
Yeah.
Poland.
hmm
Basically, entire DeFi industry is great hype right now. But I wanted to ask you
Yeah.
more about your Celsius, about how did you get there? What can you tell me about this?
So I really got there when I joined. There was like less than 10 employees, so it's been a while. And I think it's it's one of those things that I kind of just you know stalked the team because I thought it was a really interesting model. And eventually, Alex was like, you're following us around and talking to all my employees, like, do you want a job? So that's kind of how I got there. But the concept overall is that we are a borrowing and lending platform with two distinct products. One is interest bearing accounts where we take on crypto deposits. I think we're at like 16 coins now. I used to be able to name them all off, so not up to date on that as much anymore because we're adding them all the time. But we basically take on crypto deposits, and then we lend out that pool of crypto to institutions that borrow it for trading, hedging strategies, a number of different reasons. But they post collateral with us, and then ultimately we pass on the earnings from the interest that we receive from those institutions onto our depositors, about 80% on average. And then we also have crypto loan or fiat loans against crypto, which is a pretty known product in the market. And we provide fiat loans or stablecoin loans against BTC, ETH, and a few other cryptos. And those are to retail or institutional, but we only lend out the crypto deposits to institutional, for a safety reason or risk reason. Yeah. And we also, I mean, look, we require collateral from all our institutions. They go through a very intensive approval process. So it's very important for us to always keep our community safe. And that's always come first in our minds. So we do not take risks at all with the institutions that we lend to or the collateral we take on, because, Alex has always told us from day one that if you lose the trust of your community, if you lose the trust of your users, then everything that we've worked for goes up in flames. So that's the main motivator that kind of drives us to not take on anything that would ever put our community at risk.
So basically, can I be your customer? Can I use my crypto and deposit to your platform, or do you have an mobile app?
Yeah, we have a mobile app. And as long as we obviously do KYC on our users, especially because we're pooling the assets. We want to make sure that everybody's safe within that ecosystem. But yeah, you can deposit. We have no minimums. So if you want to deposit $1 worth of crypto, cool. If we also don't have any lockup periods. So that was really important to us from day one as well, is to make sure that, you're getting a better experience than your bank. So the average retail customer can pull out their money from a bank at any time, even though behind the scenes we know it's not as safe as they might think. But we wanted to make sure that, anybody in the world, regardless of how much crypto they have, could always deposit, withdraw when they want, and even if it's $5, they can still be part of it.
So basically, you've mentioned you have KYC process. So I think you also have some AML procedures, because you have to do with the fiat money. So because the reason I mention is because some people claim that DeFi market is completely unregulated. That it's like there are no regulations there. There are no real companies there, and I think it's not true.
No, it's not. And I think there's a lot of really good actors that are moving in the direction of, embracing regulation. I think that there is, there's a sliding scale of different decentralization. We're not fully decentralized in the way that, maybe some of the competitors are, and that it's a true managed lending market. But we publish all our transactions. We provide ultra transparency to all of our users, so that they can kind of audit us from a customer point of view, which I think is important. I do think there are some DeFi solutions that are a little bit less compliant, and there's some that are more. But in general, I see a lot of companies in the space moving towards regulation, knowing that ultimately that's the path to adoption. But I do respect the fact that there are still firms in the space that are fully decentralized, with giving the option to people who don't want to be part of a centralized system whatsoever.
Yeah, crypto blockchain space has to be regulated, but it's not like our way or highway. The attitude of
Right.
regulators is changing. I think it was yesterday I read about this bit license from New York, and they are changing
Mhm.
something to lure some more companies to the New York. So it's not like, and I think the bit license was it was very harsh. It was very difficult to obtain this bit license in New York.
Mhm. Yeah. And look, I think that when we think about regulation, one of the most difficult things to address is that people within this space, myself included, when I think about regulation or financial regulation from a traditional standpoint, it's they're walls, they're barriers, right, that keep other people out. Because of what this technology provides in terms of transparency and freedom of ownership of your own assets, I don't believe that that necessarily has to be the case if regulation is imposed on crypto. I think that you can really shape it and form it in the way that we want to see it as people who have ownership of our money, or have that belief set that got us into crypto in the first place. But in order to do that, you need adoption.
Yes, of
And
course.
in order to impose those, yeah, in order to impose, the kind of regulation that we want that still allows for freedom and isn't, a walled garden, we have to um, have more people in the system in order to do so. And so it's kind of a chicken and the egg thing, right?
Yeah.
You will bring more people in with regulation and clear guidance. But once you have more people in the system, then you have more manpower or support around regulation that actually benefits the transparency and the freedom that technology provides.
Well, some people need to realize that this space, more and more people join us in this space, and it's not like they are experts. For example, I saw an example when I say to someone, press F5 on your keyboard, and he presses letter F and number 5, and I am like, yeah, it's true story. Okay, then let me tell you, 30% of all emails, of all communication I receive via different social media platforms is like, either it's, Mike, I have lost access to my wallet, help me, what can I do? And I ask, okay, that's not a problem. Do you have those 12 or maybe 24 words mnemonic seed written down? Well, I have password to my wallet. Yeah, so a lot of money lost. And the other case is someone stole my money. Here's the address. They went there. Who is he? Or she, or who? Can you tell me? And I say, it's just a Bitcoin address. Or
You,
any other cryptocurrency. It's not like you can track it down. You can try to block them on exchanges and ATMs, but it's not that easy. It may lay dormant for years, and then someone will
so
withdraw it. Yeah.
okay, so basically, when you look at adoption, I think that you will pull people in when you're able to provide the UX, but also a similar experience to what they're used to first. And then I think there is a place and time if people wanted to go further down the rabbit hole, but you need to be able to ease them in because if they're losing all their money or they're getting funds stolen because they don't understand the basic principles that might come easy to us, or that we learned way back when, then you're just going to lose people right off the bat. So I don't think you can throw people in the deep end of DeFi and expect them to swim. I think that you need, um, you know, very retail friendly entry points. And then, of course, there is a place for, you know, teaching them, that if they don't have their own personal keys in cold storage for some of their crypto, that it's not fully safe, right? That there will always be risk by keeping I don't know, by keeping funds on a centralized wallet to some extent, right? So that's true, but I think that you also have to present, people like my grandma with options to enter, that she'll never go down that rabbit hole.
Yes.
And that should exclude her from a financial revolution. It should just mean that she's in a different spot, and we should build for those people, because ultimately saying the only way you can come into this ecosystem is if you fully learn the tech and the security and all these things behind it, is leaving an entire generation, if not 2 generations, behind and saying, adios, like, we're moving on without you. And that's just not fair.
Yeah, I think you have to take completely different approach when you are talking to different type of people. You cannot use the same arguments talking to your grandma and talking to teenagers, because for me, for example, when I talk to my father, he already has his bitcoins and he wants to buy some more. My approach was like, how corrupt the banking system is. What is fictional reserve system? Dollar is not backed by gold anymore, so the money are losing the value. And I showed him this graph of United States dollars from like 1920s to the so like that. And when I talk to some young people, I tell them, okay, it's new technology, you are your own bank, you have to be responsible, but of course it's like you can remember all those 12 words and travel anywhere in the world and withdraw it. So basically you have to be responsible, but of course you are in full control. And when you approach people who have a lot of money, they will be more interested in some custody form, insured investments. So basically, when someone has like millions of dollars, or maybe tens of millions of dollars, he doesn't want to set up his own exchange account and trade Bitcoin for altcoins and things. He wants to invest, and then he wants his money to be secure. So
I mean, everybody has their own rabbit hole. But I think that you have to give people a good enough experience up front to let them find that rabbit hole. Because if they're not, if they don't have a good experience up front, then they can't start to explore the different ways that this could impact their lives or the lives of their loved ones, or even the lives of billions of people on a global scale. So, user first, and then convert them.
Well, to be honest, in Poland it's even more difficult, because it's like 1989 we just switched from communism to democracy, and our banking system is pretty new, and we have all those new technologies, like you take your card, you close it to the reader and you pay, or you can input some code.
We still don't have that in the US. Honestly, like, I was living in London and it was everywhere. Like, Apple Pay was everywhere. And I came back to the US and it was like nowhere. Like, I can't pay with Apple. Like, people, I'll be like, oh, can I pay with Apple Pay? I was in the South like a month ago, and I forgot my card at home, and I was like, hey, can I use Apple Pay? And the woman goes like, what's that? And I was like, how are we in this position in the US right now? And, over in Asia, they're living in a cashless society. But I also think, not to go off on a tangent, but I think that's why it's more important than ever that we get crypto adopted, because you start to see the crash in interest rates or negative interest rates like you do in Europe, and then you start to see the move towards a cashless society, and people don't have an option, right? Like, you're paying your bank to hold your funds, use your funds on your behalf, and also, even if you wanted to get out of it, even if you wanted to not hold all your money there, and say you were like, I'm just going to keep a shoebox under my bed and pull out $100 a day for, you know, my food and train fare, you can't even do that anymore. Like there's so many places, especially in Asia, but also, you know, it's becoming more frequent in Europe where you have to have a card. And anybody who is excluded from that financial system for whatever reason, whether they wanted to be opted out by themselves, or they're excluded because of where they were born, or, you know, whatever reason there might be, they're left behind. And have you ever tried to function in a society without like a credit card? Because it's difficult. It's really hard. I don't think a lot of people understand like how hard that is and will continue to be as time goes forward and the technology advances.
Well, to be honest, I'm happy that I live in a country where you have to pay with your credit card or debit card anywhere you want, basically anywhere. There are some small stores that don't accept those payments, but you can use cash anywhere. So it's good because cashless society seems to be pretty cool, but there are some real dangers and people need to realize it. For example, I heard that in Sweden, they basically have no cash. They don't use cash anymore. And their government starts to ask people, why did you buy this and that? So it's becoming like, I don't know, North Korea, or it's not the way we should go. And
a cashless society is a surveillance society, period.
Yeah, basically.
That's what it is. And people don't, you know, it's cool and it's convenient and it's nice to have, but it shouldn't be the only option. Because if it is, then we're going to get to that point where, you know, what's the metaphor that if you put a frog in water and you turn up the heat, it slowly boils. It will never panic because it doesn't know that it's boiling alive. It will just die because it will eventually get too hot, but it's just a slow, unknown death, which is very dark now that I'm saying it at 9 a.m. in the morning. Like it's a little dark for 9 a.m., but you know.
Well, there is a saying from Benjamin Franklin. I'm trying to find it now. It goes like, let me find it.
You're gonna one-up my quote with a Ben Franklin quote? Like now I have to go find another quote from another like president.
No, it's like those who give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. So, for example, you cannot give up your liberty. You have to.
Well, we've
fight.
been doing it every single day when we sign terms and conditions, when we click I agree on T's and C's, but that's like a whole nother story. Premium's not a thing, guys. You still pay for those services. Anyways.
Yeah.
I could go on and talk about that for quite some time.
Yeah, I think we could talk about this for hours. Especially that I am all for freedom, and I always try to tell the people, your freedom is your freedom. As long as you don't limit my freedom, you're okay to do whatever you want to do. I'm just like that. Yeah. Okay, so Celsius, we have covered this topic. Now let's move to the broader side and DeFi, DeFi market, because 2018 was like 2017, 2018 was like ICOs. ICOs everywhere. Of course, there were a lot of scams. And now 29.
There's STOs.
Yeah, 20.
And then there's.
Well, what?
Oh, then there was like STOs. Like every 6 months, there's like a new like hot thing.
Yeah, then 2019 there was this IEOs, exchanges trying to do ICOs their way, but it basically we can say it failed. And now 2020, it's like DeFi everywhere. So what do you think? What do you think about this? Because maybe let's look at the broader view, because for some people DeFi is like lending and borrowing and nothing else.
Yeah. So, I mean, this goes back to my earlier point, is that I think that there's a lot of these things that from a basic level, whether you're talking about ICOs or STOs or DeFi, that they're generally concepts that are just too early and exploited too easily right now. And that ultimately, like, I'll come out and say it. I love the concept of an ICO. Like, I love the concept as a whole. I worked, in and around venture for years. I think that it's a corrupt system, and I think that it should be disrupted by an ICO type model. Did we drop the ball? Yeah. Did we exploit it? Yeah, big time. I think that the same thing goes for DeFi. I think that ultimately DeFi is an amazing technology. I think that it gives people the freedom, like borrowing in lending markets is a great example of being able to lend out your crypto directly on a peer-to-peer basis. That's a great concept, but it only works when you have a large enough pool that the books are balanced at any given point, right? What we see now is a massive unbalancing of, lending markets in DeFi. And I don't think that, you will be able to get to the point where some of the true DeFi stuff that we want to see happen will occur if we do not bring more people in. And in order to bring more people in, you need a little more hand holding. I mean, I was at Celsius when we had our first dollar put in, right? And I can tell you that the hardest time, the most difficult, piece of building what we've built was the very beginning, when we didn't have enough crypto to really get big institutions to borrow from us and good interest rates. And we didn't, there was this weird point where ultimately, you have 10 to 20 million or even 5 to 20 million or, whatever it might be, that who are you going to lend that out to? So then the minute you get a big deposit in, you need to deploy it if you're going to pay interest rate on it, right? And so you need to have that human interaction to build that book. You need to have someone, calling the institutions that have onboarded with you saying, hey, we just got, 5 million XRP, do you want this? And we don't see that in DeFi lending right now because there is no central person. So I think that, do I like DeFi as a concept? Absolutely. Do I think that there needs to be two options? Yes. And do I also think that they need to work together because, to build a balanced book and have DeFi survive, you need some amount of rebalancing on a human level? I also believe that. So I think that ultimately, just like the previous, hype cycles that we've gone through, I think that they're great concepts. I think that we put a little bit too much pressure as a small community on tech that could be really beneficial on a large scale, but we're just not at that large scale yet. So I don't know. I don't necessarily think it's all hype. I think that there is some really great stuff out there, but I mean, look at the crash on March 12th. In so many ways, it proved that DeFi isn't quite ready for prime time, because, we had people, you couldn't physically get Ether into the system on that day to cover margin calls. So when we have something like that, we walked out of that with zero liquidations. The reason being is because we had counterparties calling us that were in good standing, that we have parent guarantees on, that were like, look, give me another hour because I'm just trying to get the money in the system to cover this margin call. And as long as we evaluated the risk and we were like, yes, this makes sense because we know exactly how much we have on collateral from you. It's not in a smart contract that we have no control over. We have, manual overrides. So the ability for us to do that allowed us to come out of that with happy depositors because we lost zero funds and very happy counterparties because, we were able to accommodate, the flash crash that we saw.
Yeah. So basically about this DeFi, I've heard an opinion that when DeFi enters Wall Street size, there will have to be custody services, there will have to be insurances, there will have to be some form of code auditioning. So you have to verify your code, because if you fail, some people will lose a lot of money. So basically now it's like, it's pretty small comparing to the financial system. It's growing rapidly, but people have to realize that there are some dangers. And you've mentioned one thing, that Celsius is like self-centralized, so you have this off switch, so you can
Right.
yeah. So that from my point of view, it's very good.
Yeah, I think here's the thing though, is that regardless of all the tech being built out, what you also have to realize is that I've worked with financial institutions, right? Like I've worked with a number of banks on different initiatives, and asking, before you build out all this tech, you have to realize asking Wall Street to adopt a new technology from that in which they interact with a smart contract and moving it through the bureaucratic system of approvals for use of that tech. We're so far from that. We are so far from that. I read the book Real Deal by Sandy Weil, who is the founder of Citigroup and was really responsible for a lot of the aggregation of financial services under one roof that happened in the 80s and 90s. And one of the things that he describes is Wall Street moving to databases, right? When computers were introduced, and it took years. And a lot of financial institutions suffered or fell because of their lack of adoption to this new tech, right? Now, do I think that will happen at some point? Yes. But do I think that we continue to build for our understanding of the tech? And it actually gets us further away from getting Wall Street on board, because we're getting more niche into decentralization, instead of saying, okay, how am I building this in a way that would make it super easy to move up the chain of command in a large, financial firm? Because if I'm going to sit there and explain it to a bunch of, to be frank, old white guys on a executive board, and I'm talking about smart contracts or all of this, merging decentralized tech, like, it's not going to go through. It's not what they're used to. Like, it needs to be, adapted for the user, not for what we want ultimately, for what we want it to look like at the end of the day.
Yeah, it took them a lot of time to switch from those traditional phones, those landlines, to mobile phones. So yeah, don't expect.
And it expounded, like, it was Moore's law, right? It went super fast after that, and now you see, algo traders that, you literally moved to New Jersey for speeds. But I think that, we'll get there. Like, we'll get to this end product, this end vision that everybody sees, but it's not going to be today. Like, you need to have a shallow end and then, move into the deep end. So
yeah, I completely agree. By the way, I have created Celsius account, but
Yay!
To be honest, you have convinced me. I think your platform is great. So yeah, I especially love that you are not fully related on smart contracts. Like you've said, you have the off switch. Yeah.
I think it's important. I think that ultimately you're looking at, I like to say it's a sliding scale. I think that you can't succeed with one or the other. You have to have options for everybody. And ultimately, this is why I think it's sometimes so important to have women in the space, because guys will get their egos involved and they're like, DeFi, like CeFi, like just, and they have these Twitter wars. I'm like, guys, just get along. Like, we're fighting over scraps. Like, we're literally fighting over like the smallest amount of a lending market right now. Like, that's in the trillions. So for us to try to be like fighting over, whether we're using this technology or like a custodian NBC, like, just do what you think is best for your ethos and your project. Stay in your lane. Like,
Yeah, I think people should use more their head, because sometimes some projects become religion to certain people. It happened to Bitcoin. It happened to Lisk in Poland, because in Poland Lisk became religion. I don't know why.
right.
Because it may be because it's been introduced on one of the our biggest exchange in Poland. Unfortunately, they had to move out of Poland because our government doesn't want to help us to grow. So basically, you cannot run business in Poland, crypto related. And basically,
Oh my God. You just made me think the Cell token is up to 40 cents. It's
Well.
22% in the last 24 hours.
Well,
Shit. Oh,
okay, Cell token 46 place, 500% in during the last year, over 112% last month. Oh, great. Why didn't I buy it sooner? Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's going to the moon.
oh my God. Oh my God.
Well, maybe when did it happen? 24? No, it's like constant growth. Last 7 day, starting price 25 cents, ending price 40 cents. Okay, yeah, it will be $1 in like 2 weeks.
Oh my God. That's just, oh my God.
Well, there are some projects that are like that, and
It's
yeah,
just crazy. I mean, I can't describe, like, I literally can't describe, like, I was with a company pre-ICO, like, the fucking grind over the last 2.5 years. Like, everybody always says in startups, they're like, you know, how did you get here? How did you do this? I'm like, I gave up my life for 1.5 years. Like, that was my sacrifice. Like, I gave up my social life. I gave up my dating life. Like, I gave everything up for really about 1.5 years. The first 1.5 years, I just worked every weekend, every night, like everything. And to see it happen, especially because we didn't list for a year. And then the founding team didn't get their tokens for 6 months after listing. So we didn't even get our tokens until like December, this past December. And just to see like everything coming to fruition is like, I get why entrepreneurs are addicted to creating companies now.
trust
'Cause
me,
it's like,
you will be happy when it hits like $40 per token.
it's $40 per token.
Well, there is some simulation I did. I have many projects I invested into. Some are like, I think my biggest mistake, except BitConnect, because BitConnect was obvious scam.
Yeah.
And I have lost some money. It's not a lot, because like $200, so nothing I can complain about. But there are some projects like SafeDroid, and I probably never heard about it. It's some form of German investing platform, but they are not a scam. And basically I invested like 100 euros, maybe 200 euros, bought 2,000 tokens for that. Yeah, I think it was 10,000 tokens for that. Then I made a video about them because I thought it would be a good project. And then I found out that there is some form of, how do you call it? It's when you make a video bounty program. And they gave me like 60,000 tokens more. So I have like 70,000 right now. And their worth is like 3 cents right now altogether. So I bought 10,000, then I got like 60,000 more, and now altogether they are like 3 cents. So
Yeah, awesome. Cool.
so yeah, it makes me laugh. But there are some great projects. For example, there is some Polish project called Global Game Coin, GGC, and they are like they create lotteries. They have their own white label system. For example, they make software for the lotteries. Some lotteries can run on their own using their software, or maybe they can join their system. So it's like STO, because you get paid every month in Ethereum for having those tokens and registering on their wallet on their platform. And new countries join. Of course, there will be no American lottery because of all those regulations, but they have like African countries. I think China is joining. And for me, basically, I bought them for like 7,000 Satoshis, and now they are like 30 or 40,000 per token. So even if I sell them today, I am like 400% in profit. So yeah, I am very happy.
Wow. This is why I don't trade. Like, I don't trade often though, and I think that that's one of the things is that I think I'm a little bit too emotional on like, I'm good with like taking it, holding it, leaving it. But I would be like, oh, like, I don't know if I have a steady enough hand to do that, or, gamble. I've always been horrible at gambling. So yeah, it's pretty insane. It just, it feels weird.
So my next question is about your experiences as a woman in male-dominated space, because crypto space is still dominated by men. I see it on my YouTube channel, I see it on the conferences, but how was it for you?
I think that there are some interesting nuances of being a woman in crypto right now. Being in tech previously to this, it was also a male-dominated industry. And crypto is a bit different. Obviously, it's a smaller percentage of women in crypto, but the women are a lot more supportive, I think, which I think is amazing. They're always building each other up. They're always opening doors for each other, which is incredible. At Celsius particularly, I found it to be, just incredible company for being supportive of women. We always started out with the ethos that diversity was really important. So we have consistently had either, around 50% or over 50% women in our company. And a lot of those women are some of the original team. 3 or 4 of our original team members were women, and they all moved up to the ranks, got leadership positions. And I think that's been really key in being able to bring more women and keep that ratio high, because when founders and, C-level hire women from the offset, then they empower those women to hire other women. And I think that, we're aware of the nuances of being a woman in tech, and that, there's really ambitious young women that might not have the exact same resume or exact same experience as their male counterparts, not because they don't work as hard, but maybe because they didn't go for that promotion, they didn't ask for a little bit more money, and we're all, aware of that gender gap that exists. So I think that it's really important when looking at women in crypto to remember that when you're hiring, when you're looking for talent, putting passion and hard work first, maybe over an exact one-to-one resume like comparison is really important, because ultimately, like, it's so important to have the female perspective when building products. Like, Alex always has said to us, like, how can you build a product for all of the population if you only can see it from one side of that population? So, if you're creating something that you want to be used by everyone, it makes zero sense to only have the perspective of the male side and see if you can just guess or assume what a female wants when using something that hopefully she'll be using every single day, or both genders will be using every single day. It's also really interesting, I think, going to events and conferences, seeing as I'm obviously client facing, so I travel a lot. I go to a lot of the conferences. We no longer have that, how do I say this? We're no longer seeing like models in skimpy clothes at the conferences like we were in like 2017, 2016, which is great. That's a huge improvement. But I do believe that, too often we're not letting female voices be heard enough at, events, and instead they're being put on a women's panel instead of being put on a panel with a bunch of men that are their peers in the space. So I think we have a little ways to go, but I do see a lot of promising trends in terms of your podcast, other women reaching out to mentor or to help new women in the space. And, quite frankly, I think that a lot more women are here letting their voices be heard, and not just as, some, girl on Twitter that tweets about, the hottest coins. They really have a lot of opinions. They're owning their own VC firms, and they're starting their own projects, and they're really becoming advocates for the fact that there's women around the world that need financial freedom and deserve financial freedom. And, we are representative of those individuals, and we need to take that seriously as women in space.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think successful project needs both genders to have the full range of problems, because there are differences between men and women. From my perspective, it's like men are more objective oriented, so they have like task and they are fully on this task, and they are more crazy. So men are like, okay, shut up and take my money. And basically women are like, they are more shy, but they have a wide range of views, so broader. They look at the whole concept of this, not this little. And I think it comes from some ancient times when men were hunting, so they were like fully concentrated on their prey, so they had to get food, and women were like gathering stuff going around, and so they had to have their eyes around their head. So yeah.
I think one of the things that I would say that I would love to see more of, and it's difficult because we live in really interesting times, right? But when I started at Celsius, I was lucky enough to have Daniel and Alex, our co-founders, as really like mentors to me. And you're right, like women in so many ways, like their male peers are so much more aggressive and so much more confident just because of the society that they're raised in. And, I always wanted to go after partners that I believed were on our level. And, without ever disciplining me or putting it in a negative light, Alex especially always was like, no, you go after the biggest person in the room, like always. And he really mentored me to like bring my thought level up to that of my male peers. And I don't think that you necessarily get that until you have someone that you really look up to as a role model telling you, look, you're the only female in the room, and it's okay to be afraid to go up to the biggest fish, but do it anyways. And I think that women and men often have mentors of their same gender, which is great. I think that that's really important. But I also think that it sometimes is further debilitating to women, because if I have a female mentor, she's going to teach me how to plan. She's going to teach me how to be detail oriented, precise, and that's great. And that's necessary. But you also, in order to compete, in order to close that gender gap, in order to, really strive and push yourself ahead as women in a male dominated space, you really do need a male mentor that's like, think like a guy, like really be aggressive, go after what you want, do things that scare you, have that confidence, have that bravado. And I really value that in a lot of ways. And I think that, we should all be more accepting of, situations in which females have male mentors and more males should seek out female mentees, because that's the only way that you change the gender gap in any industry. Because you're able to do both, right? The same way that if I have a male mentor or, male mentors on our C-level that are teaching me how to, think like my male counterparts in other companies, if a female has a male mentee, then she's teaching him how to be more like have a higher EQ, how to read people better, how to be like build relationships better, all the things that females are just naturally better at. She's teaching him skills that he wouldn't be able to learn without a female mentee. So I think we should be a little bit less concerned. And I understand that there's difficulties around all of that with, like without getting into like kind of the nuances of male and female, like, roles in today's society. Like, I understand that there's issues around that, but I think that we as an industry especially need to face them head on like adults and just define a way to share the knowledge that each of our genders brings to the table and move past any fear that we have of like, oh, I have a male mentee, I have a female mentee, and I'm married or they're married or whatever. Like, just because you work with the other gender does not mean that there's any sort of relationship other than professional. So I think we should move on from that as a whole in the best way we can and start to share knowledge across that line, because it would benefit both sides so greatly.
Yeah, I completely agree. Sometimes you have to think outside of the box. So yeah, you have to listen to the other gender. You have to understand their point of view. Of course, there are not only how they have been raised, because there are some traditions and traditional roles of men and women. But there are also differences between countries, between cultures, and my attitude is like, when I talk to someone, I always assume that he or she has something interesting to say to me. So of course, we always judge, and we will always judge. So it's like in our natures. For example, for me, it's like when I look at the person, 99.99% of all times, I made some basic judgment, and basically in all those times I am correct. I either like them in like 5 minutes, so when we talk for like 5 minutes and we are like best friends, or okay, I don't, of course I won't say it out loud. So basically, okay, let's finish our conversation and I don't want to talk
and I'll see you later.
So I don't want to see you anymore. But most of the times we are on the same waves, or I don't know how you call it.
The same wavelength,
yeah.
And it's so important. I mean, you have to do that. I think that one of the things for me is that in being in a client-facing role and building these relationships, I hardly ever choose to work long-term with people that I don't like, because I think that it's even, in the very beginning, even when there was people that I would have loved to work with as a concept, like as a company, when I met people from that company and we didn't jive, I would usually meet a couple other people, but when that was consistent, I was like, this will never work because it will be all business, and you'll never be able to really push forward the partnership in ways that's mutually beneficial if you're only doing it for yourself, right? You're like, I'm putting up with this person because I want this business. But ultimately, if you're building relationships long term, if you're doing like actual biz dev and you're building out a network of partners, I love every single one of my partners. I have relationships with every single one of them. I know about them, their families. Like, I think that that's so incredibly important because ultimately, when you care about the person that you're talking to all the time, especially in long form deals, then you put them first. Like, just like your friends, you also are like, okay, this is good for me, but is this good for them as well? And you think about that first and foremost when you're structuring deals, when you're, coming up with new initiatives. And the only way that you can do that and have a genuinely long-lasting, mutually beneficial relationship is if you care about the other person to some extent. I think too often people are looking at the bottom line only, and they don't really think about the fact that you should be expecting to work with this person for years. And if you were to go into a bar, meet a new friend, and you were like, oh, they're cool, they pick up checks or they, have a cool house, I would not become friends with that person just based on that single fact. I'd be like, if this person's going to be in my life for years, I'm going to need to get along with them. And you should treat business the same way, that you really, it has to be a business fit first, but then it needs to go beyond that because you'll talk to them all the time and it'll just be better for both of you if you like each other.
Yeah, I completely agree. If you don't like someone, it will be much harder for you to cooperate with them, to work with them, because
Creative, come up with new things. Yeah.
yeah. And one more funny thing, I think it was yesterday, I read about some article from, I think it was from the 90s. And there was some academic study, and this professor claimed that someday, when there will be more women in the programming, developing software and things like that, those products will become much better because women have completely different view. Male developers are like, okay, I'm coding, leave me alone, don't waste my time. And it was in the 90s where there were not a lot of. Now I think there are like, I don't know, 2, 3, 10 times more women in many different spaces, not only crypto. So yeah, he was like a prophet. Yeah. So,
it would be a completely different design of products, right? Like, think about how we bring different aspects, like we were just talking about, to relationship building or to business operations, detail-oriented versus, speed to market, I think is a great, differentiator. But when you bring that to a product and you start to build, a digital world around both sides of both genders and both perspectives, then you create more comprehensive products for more people. And I think that you make it more welcoming towards not only women entering the space, but women using, right? Women consumers. And I don't think we even know what that looks like. I don't even think that we are fully aware of what it looks like to have products that are so comprehensive in terms of like usability to women and men, that we attract just as many women as we do men. And that would be a game changer for sure.
Yeah, there is a funny story. My friend told me about it. He's like, he cooperates with some form of, they design TV remotes. And they sent him a new model. And he thought like, okay, I will show it to my grandmama. And he went to her and, okay, grandma, tell me more about this. What do you think about this TV remote? Is it okay? And it was like, she took it. It was like 30 seconds. Okay, I don't like this and that. And he was like, okay, you're completely right. Why did anyone never thought about it? And he called them and said, okay, this is flawed. You have to fix this and that. And they were like, well, you are completely right. How did you
Yeah.
how did you
We
find
all
it?
just need to call up our grandmas and be like, "Hey,
Yeah.
can you test it out?" We need pure testing groups for grandmas. That's
Yeah.
that's what I'm here.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk a little about our current market situation, especially in DeFi concept, because it's like DeFi boom, DeFi bubble forming, basically, and DeFi is much more than only lending and borrowing. Because I think some people see DeFi as only, okay, I can lend my money, I can borrow my money, and that's all.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, what do you think?
So look, I think that DeFi touches a lot of areas, right? Whether you're looking at the most basic, like cold storage versus a centralized wallet, or you're looking at exchanges, swaps, that kind of stuff. I think that there is, I think there's space for both CeFi and DeFi. I think that DeFi has a little bit more hype right now. But once again, we have to always remember we are in our own echo chamber. Like, we consistently fail to remember that we are building products based on the conversations that we're having with other people in an echo chamber. I have a lot of friends that work in, Silicon Valley and in tech, and it's the same exact thing. I think that DeFi is important. I think that it is key to build now, to start introducing into the market, to provide financial freedom, autonomy, all of those good things. But I think that we need to create a clear path from entry to the market in a CeFi type scenario, and ease people into a DeFi scenario. I think that ultimately, throwing people in the deep end of DeFi is not a recipe for success for this industry. It's not going to garner adoption. It's not going to help build the kind of understanding and really the kind of like grassroots popularity that crypto really needs, because DeFi, it seems to be that oftentimes when I go to conferences or events, it's a lot of, I'm more DeFi than you. Like, I can out DeFi you.
Yeah.
And that's not the competition that we need to be having. I think there's definitely a place for it. There is 110%. There needs to be these products being built that are completely under the control of the individual and not tied to any centralized organization. We need that freedom. We need that option. And it needs to be being built right now, right? Because you can't not build these right now and let CeFi happen, and all of a sudden we just created another traditional market all over again, just in a digital world, and we're like, that's that, cool, got it. Like, got it. We don't want that, but at the same time, I think that one, we're a little bit ahead of ourselves on like building products that are so complicated in terms of the technology, the usability, and we're also just a little bit ahead of ourselves in thinking that people will enter and raise to our level of understanding. Like, it's not really what you want in terms of like a new experience when you're like exploring new technology. You don't want to have to sit there. A lot of people don't have the time or the opportunity to sit there and learn truly how to take their keys, or like move all their crypto into cold storage, or I have a great example. I'm teaching my dad how to buy on DEX, and he's done it twice, and every time he still calls me, and he has to call me, and he's buying sell token, right? So he calls me and he's like, okay, where's the password? Like, where do I put the password? I'm like, no, like, open your MetaMask, like, attach the MetaMask, like. And he was like, well, no, like, where is this? Where's this? Like, okay, what's wallet versus what's the contract? And he, like, it's so clear to me. That no matter how simple I think it is, right? How easy it naturally comes to me. It's instances like that where I realize just how far we have to come. Because once again, we're in a bubble, we're in an echo chamber, and these are things that we don't really think about anymore, right? They become habits, they're ingrained. I know how to connect my MetaMask to, any like DeFi application that I need to do that through. But my dad doesn't. And no matter how many times I walk him through it, he would have given up. If he wouldn't have had me to call, he would have given up on his first try, to be frank. Like, he like, it gives him stress, it gives anxiety, and every time he complains about it. Now it doesn't hurt that, he's made, a good return on it. So he keeps trying, but there's so many people that's not true for, and that we've lost numerous amounts of people, probably tens of thousands, if not more, people that we have lost because their first experience was so poor in requiring them to go through DeFi. So if we want DeFi to succeed, I think that we need easy entry points for CeFi that make them feel very similar to their current financial experience, right? The ability to reset passwords, reset pins, that kind of stuff. And then work on education, and then give them an opportunity to move into a more decentralized, autonomous model, if that's what they want, right? Give them the entry point, give them the path to deeper decentralization, but don't require it right off the bat. Because if you do that, then we're gonna have a bunch of Sam Jonases running around. I'm going like, what? How do I do this? Where's my password? Who do I call? Where's the support number? And you're just gonna exclude people.
Yes.
You're gonna be in the same place in 10 years.
I made this mistake many times in my life. I assumed that someone is on the same level of understanding as I did, and something was very easy for me, and I was like getting angry because they don't understand that. So I have to put myself in their shoes. We are just at the beginning of this journey, so we need to take small steps. It's changing because now you have all those academies, you have the places, you can search YouTube, you can go to the academy of some exchanges, they are doing that. I'm working with an academy and doing some explanatory videos for one of the Polish exchanges. Myself, of course, non-profit, so anyone can join and listen to what I have to say. Basic stuff like proof of work, proof of stake, mining oriented. But 2017 was like, there was nothing like that. So it was like, okay, Bitcoin is going to the moon, buy Bitcoin, and that's all.
I think the other thing that we have to remember is that education is amazing. It's so important. But like I was saying, it's the second step. Like, education should not have to be the first step. I should not have to understand how electricity works to turn on a light. I should be able to do it without knowing and having it all behind the scenes. And then you work on education, right? And then you work on teaching people how, taking some of their assets offline into a cold storage, like into a Trezor or whatever it might be, is important for financial freedom if something ever happens, right? You teach them afterwards. But if you require them to learn first, we are completely missing the point that there's millions, actually billions of people around the world that do not have, one, basic education, but two, the opportunity to take time for that education.
Yeah.
I have a large family. I have an aunt that has 5 kids. Like, you think that she's gonna like literally sit there and teach herself what like you have to do to get onto a DEX in order to buy like some crypto that someone no, she's not going to do that. So you need to have use first, easy entry, easy use, massive benefit, then move on to education and expansion into DeFi and let them see the benefit first. Like, benefit users first before you ask them to come and, you know, benefit us by joining the financial revolution and learning all of these, you know, these basic things that we think are easy. I have the same experience on a consistent basis where I still feel like I know nothing. I talk to people all the time that I'm like, holy crap, like, you have so much knowledge. And then I go and meet with, you know, a family friend that doesn't know anything about crypto. And they are blown away by like me scratching the surface. And I think that we need to remind ourselves all the time, that we are in a bubble, like we are in an echo chamber of people. We are in a very niche industry with very knowledgeable people, but we should no longer be building for those people. I think that it's utterly ridiculous that we continue to build for whales, that we're building for this 1% of 1% of 1%, even though they hold so much wealth. Like, that is not the direction we should be going. We need to stop building and trying to like capture those, you know, 2,000 people that got into Bitcoin in 2013, and instead try to build. And it's harder. I get it. It's harder. It's more challenging. It's a less clear path. But if we want this to go anywhere, we need to start thinking about how do we build for not the easy wins, but the harder wins. The you know, mom of 5 in Alabama, or, you know, the you know, guy working 3 jobs at, you know, 23 in Sao Paulo. Like, they're not going to be easy wins because they're difficult to get to, they're difficult to reach, they're difficult to build for. And on top of that, you might get a deposit, or you know, they represent such a small fraction of wealth. But if you start doing that and you do it well, that's when you start to gain adoption. But everybody talks about adoption, but they continue to say, I'm going to build a really complicated system and I'm going to get just a bunch of huge deposits and some mass adoption.
Yeah, entry level should be very easy. It reminds me of the presentation that Steve Jobs gave many years ago showing first iPhone. So I don't know if you have seen it, this video. It was funny, but it was also very easy, and like right now even 3-year-olds can use mobile phones.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately. So
Yeah.
they are like that. And in crypto, I completely agree with you. We don't have to look at the whales all the time. We have to look at normal people without any technical knowledge. We have to assume that they may have never used computer before, and we have to bring them. So entry level should be very, very low. Should be very easy. Just like click that, buy your Bitcoin or buy your anything, and just like that. And if you want to learn more, then you can start.
Yeah.
You can start with this. So yeah. So that's very important. People forget about it, and yeah.
I think people choose not to look at it. I don't think people forget. I think people choose to say, you know, we're building some really cool stuff. I think that we're really creating next wave of not only financial products, but just the next layer of technology that will be involved in all of our lives. And it's really cool to like look at some of these, you know, crazy use cases, applications. But I think we also need to slow our roll for a second and say, okay, before I dive into some derivative product, how do I create something that's easy and approachable? Because I still don't think, I think we've done a better job at it. I think you look at things like Cash App adding Bitcoin, great example. It's super easy. And it actually, I think there was some stat that 60% of Cash App's profits came from Bitcoin last fiscal year. So it was massively beneficial to them. But yeah, you need a very easy entry point, and it can't just be via on and off ramp. Like, you need easy entry point and use on like a base level for all products, for exchange, swap, purchasing, loans, everything. And then move on, right? And then build the next layer, and then educate them. And then make it just as easy to graduate to DeFi as it was to get into CeFi.
Yeah, that's why I always have to remind myself that it's easy for me, but when I look at myself, I've been using computers since I've been like 7 years old. So it's
Right.
33 years now in computers, in internet, and
Yeah.
all those things. So it's much easier for me. I have to look from the perspective of someone who
You gotta hire grandmas.
yeah, yeah. My grandma had the problem with using the phone, because in Poland we used to have those phones where you had to like put your finger and then
Rotary phone.
yeah, rotary phones. And then when the revolution, when we switched from communism to democracy, we started getting like phones with all those numbers. And my grandmother, unfortunately, both of my grandmothers are dead right now. So it was very hard for them. For me, it was like, okay, it's very easy. But when they used those phones for many years, it was hard for them to switch from one type of phone, those rotary phones, to the one with buttons. But eventually, yeah, they did it.
Eventually they got it. But that's the thing, is that I think in a lot of ways, one of the things that Alex has always preached to us internally is you cannot have, this is when we started, we never had lockups, right? We've always had zero minimums, no lockups. And that was really hard on the offset, right? Because we never deploy all coins. We always keep a reserve on hand for withdrawals, but we pay interest on those coins anyways, right? So we take a haircut on the coins that we don't deploy. But he said to us from the get-go, he said, you cannot have a worse experience than the bank. You have to have the exact same experience and then some. So you have to make it so similar. You have to make it at the bare minimum the same as a banking experience, right? Where I can pull out my money anytime. I can deposit, $10, $15, and then you have to go beyond that. And so that's when you like take off the fees. Like, we don't have any fees for early withdrawal or early, or if you were to lock the funds up, we don't have any fees if like you want to put in 10,000 more, or you want to put in $1. So I think that you have to exceed the current standard in order to be beneficial. And until you do that, then, what are you really doing? Like, you're not attracting anybody to move away from what they currently have. Like your grandma, like the only reason why she moved away from the rotary phone and it's funny because my grandma never did. We still have a rotary phone in this apartment. And this used to be her apartment. So basically the thing is that the only reason why people move away is because there's a better tech. So you need to offer them a better solution than what they currently have. And I think we can do that as an industry. We just got to think about user first.
Yeah, and our habits can be very powerful, because for myself, I've been using, for example, for me to switch from one Windows version to another was like heart attack, because it took me like, I don't know, 2 years or maybe something like that to switch from Windows 7 to Windows 10. And I use my laptop with Windows 7, and then I've been building a new PC for YouTube, for recording, and I had to install Windows 10. And I've been giving myself many reasons not to finish building this PC. I don't need it. There's no rush. And then when I finally powered it on, installed Windows 10, okay, I hate this operating system. Why it's so different from the previous version? And now I'm like, oh, I'm so happy that I did it. So yeah, we have powerful habits. So I completely...
They're very powerful habits. I'm reading a book called The Power of Habit right now. About how to reset your habits, and it's really, really interesting, and I think it's really reminiscent of what we're going through in the financial system, because we're asking people, just not even just us, like the financial system as a whole is asking people to transition to mobile payments. And I think they're doing a lot of the hard work for us, to be honest. I think they're setting up the habits and the general acceptance of digital wallets that will ultimately help crypto. I think they're building that infrastructure, building that mindset, but it's ours to lose. We have to pick that up, and we have to, insert ourselves as a better alternative to their traditional financial institution in order to, garner their trust and, win over those users.
Yeah, and I think it's much easier for you in USA than for us in Poland to show someone that the banking system is that you can make a better product, because in Poland we have like mobile payments. I can take my debit card and go to shop, and if my payment is small enough, I think it's like 20 or 30 bucks, I can take my card, put it on the reader, and that's it. I don't have to input the PIN numbers. So it's so easy, it's so simple that when I tell someone that, okay, you can install the Bitcoin wallet, you have to store your private key, and then you have to go to exchange and register, and then a KYC process, and then you can buy your first Bitcoin, and they are like, nah.
No, yeah, I mean, look, I think that I have often taken for granted how obvious it is that our banking system is just like massively flawed. I don't think a lot of people, like, there's this interesting experiment I'm doing with my little brother, because he's like, he's younger than me. He has this like very political viewpoint. He has very strong opinions on a lot of things. But he doesn't care about crypto. And it's kind of insane to me, because I'm like, okay, but you understand like the oppressive nature of the financial system to some extent. You understand how, exploitative it's been and how it's gotten worse and worse. He understands from a basic level, him and a lot of his friends, I've talked to him about it, they understand they don't like their banks, but they don't know why. Like they have this like understanding that, yeah, like F that, like fuck that. But they don't know why exactly. And so I'm trying to figure out how to get across them, like what the issues are, like why they hate their banks, why they feel this innate sense of like distrust and distaste for their banks, and how crypto solves a lot of those problems, without just being that, JJ's crazy older sister that is in crypto. But it's interesting because a lot of Americans understand that our system's flawed. 60% of Americans don't have passports. And so they've never gone abroad. They've never been in a place that has, touchless payments and seen how easy that is. They've never experienced, for better or worse, what it's like to have either on the negative side, not have a banking system and understood what it looks like to have either cash freedom or not be able to have access to a bank, or on the opposite, there are places that are worse. Like, I think that you have negative interest rates in Europe right now and a lot more young people are so much more aware of how detrimental it is. But I don't know. I think we all take for granted how obvious it is that the financial system is broken because we get it. Like, we understand why it's broken and how it's broken. I don't think a lot of people do. I think high level, they get it. But what I realized in talking to my brother and his friends is if they have a distrust and a distaste for the financial system, but they don't know why exactly, and they don't know exactly how they're being exploited by the financial system, then they will never make the jump to crypto because they don't know what solutions it's actually providing. So I'll let you know when I figure out how to cross that gap. I'm like taking him down a rabbit hole of radicalization right now. I'm like sending him like consistent, like, stuff, and we haven't got there yet, but hopefully I'll be able to come back to you at some point and say, this is how you radicalize it, early 20 something. Let's just blast it out across all the education channels that we have.
Yeah, let's hope that he won't have to learn the hard way that financial system is broken. Yeah. All right. You've told me that you travel a lot. You visit different crypto conferences. Can you tell me more about it? So it's like you've been all around the world, or only you?
I think like 2019, I probably went to 20 something events all over. I am incredibly grateful that I've been able to not only have the autonomy and freedom to travel for Celsius, but also to meet employees of ours all over the world. I went and lived in Tel Aviv last year and met our entire team out there. I've been able to, go live in London on behalf of the company. So I've gone to a lot of conferences. It's been awesome. Honestly, massively beneficial to my career, our network, building Celsius. I think that, we need to graduate as an industry into the next wave of conferences, i.e., pulling in more diversity from other emerging techs, other industries, financial, and getting on like similar panels, so that we can really see how these ideas overlap. And I think that's the most interesting conferences I've been to, is the ones that have just crypto people, like just take like IoT. Like if you take someone from crypto, someone from machine learning, and someone that has a background in like AI or smart cities, and you let them go at it and like learn what the end vision is from all of these different sectors. I think that we could do a lot better job at that. But it's been a really incredible experience to be able to go to these conferences, meet just friends that I count as lifelong friends, because they see the same vision I do. They believe in building a better future for the next generations. And it's really inspiring to be able to meet these people and just know, like, inherently, like, wherever you go is going to be awesome. Like, wherever you're headed is going to be a really, really awesome, like, journey to follow.
Yeah, crypto community is both the best and the worst thing in this space, because you meet some great people. I love to travel. Of course, I've never been to the crypto conference outside of Poland, but I plan to join Malta Blockchain Summit this year. Hopefully it will be, I think it's November. I think last year it was in November, so yeah, I will definitely go there. I want to visit UK because there is a lot of people from my community there, and I want to meet them. So I have to start traveling, and there's of course some local crypto meetup I run.
I got a list for you. Like, I'll give you like my insider list of all the conferences that I think are awesome. I think at the time that Corona came, I was I was a little exhausted of conferences. I actually had just got back from Davos when I left London to come back. And I was kind of a little tired of conferences, like I was a little burnt out. And now I feel like I'm ready to see everybody again. Like I'm like, I never thought I'd be like, when's the next crypto conference? Like I need to catch up with everyone, like make sure that, you know, everybody's okay and see everyone. But I'll be ready. Come, I think fall or, you know, whenever we're allowed to start traveling again, I'll be the first one on the plane.
Yeah, this was a good period of time to catch your breath. And now we have to start meeting people again. Okay, about those people, I've got something for you. Can you recommend some ladies for my show? I always wait for that because it's like it's always easier for me because sometimes I do some like private message on Twitter and then I get no reply. But when I ask, okay, can you help me with this and this person? And it's like I receive my answer in like no time. So can you recommend some ladies?
On like the like bigger side, I mean, when I first got into crypto, I started following Meltem like right away. She was like a huge role model of mine. And then when I like actually got to meet her, like I would fangirl a little bit. So I would say she was just awesome in that like I had never really been able to look up to someone that had such a strong personality. I think that, you know, too often women, especially in any industry, but tech and finance, it's hard to have a strong personality, like very strong, outspoken opinions, because it goes against what, you know, society says we should have. So that's something that I always tried to strive for, is always making my voice heard, and she definitely was a role model in that. So I would say she's awesome. In terms of like other females, I honestly would have to like look, and because there's so many girls that I have on like Twitter that I don't even know their like real names that I follow so intensely, that are so smart and so outspoken, and really have like a good voice. So I'm gonna phone a friend on that one and come back to you. But I think there's a lot of really, really awesome young women that might not have had that platform yet, or had that chance to be in the spotlight. And I remember like the very first podcast I ever got on, or the very first panel, I think, was in New York. I was so afraid. I was so terrified. But all it took was doing it, you know, 3 or 4 times or 5 or 6 times. And eventually I got used to it and developed my opinions and, you know, started putting myself out there, and it forced me to like learn more. So I think that there's probably, you know, a good amount of girls that if you give them that shot, like that first shot at their, you know, time in the spotlight, it not only makes them more invested in the industry and in their work, but also forces them to grow opinions, like not grow opinions, but like be outspoken about their opinions, and be clear about, you know, what they think, and show that other people want to hear, you know, their perspectives on these things. And I think you having this type of show and getting women's voices out there is so important to build like a more accepting and comprehensive ecosystem, because we do have different perspectives than men sometimes, and they need to have their own platform.
Yeah, and I don't bite, so I like talking to ladies, so I always try them to be relaxed, so there's no stress. So
and no, it's been awesome.
Yeah, and speaking about podcasts, I have linked it on my Twitter profile. There are podcasts of High Heels of Bitcoin. So not all are there, but the newest one are there. I started releasing them from now. Every new High Heels of Bitcoin episode gets its own podcast version. So when you, for example, drive your car, or I don't know, you can listen to Yeah, so yeah, I think that's very useful. I think many people love podcasts, so
Yeah, I love them. They're
yeah.
like the main way I consume content, actually.
Yeah, and you can be like you are doing something other on your computer, and you can listen to the podcast. You don't have to look at the screen. You can do anything else. So yeah, it's very useful. All right, my next question is not crypto related. I would like to ask you about your hobbies and what do you like to do when you are
Not
not in
crypto
crypto?
related in my life.
Yeah, if there are.
Not much. So my hobbies I love being super active. So I love yoga, I love hiking, I love being outdoors. Um, Honestly, a lot of my hobbies relate to me just being a more balanced person in my job as well. I think that, of course, when I'm traveling, I see my friends, I go out, that kind of stuff. But I really love trying out different types of fitness. So, when I was in Israel, I actually did hot yoga. This one place it's called Seoul, I think. It only has hot yoga. I did an entire summer of only hot yoga in Israel. I just made a joke that I was just like, it wasn't actually hot yoga. They just didn't get air conditioning because it was like 100, it was like 114 degrees. And I would would do hot yoga. I would be like sweating so hard and I would walk outside and it was like the exact same temperature. So I love yoga. I love hiking. I'm from Colorado, so I oftentimes, try to get out, try to go hiking, camping. I'm a little bit of a tomboy, so obviously I love fishing with my dad and my brother, doing all the mountain stuff that everybody loves. I've never gotten into mountain biking or rock climbing, but that's definitely on my list. Like rock climbing is top of my next thing to learn because I think I would really, really enjoy it. But yeah, I like being outside as much as possible. And also, last thing I guess is cooking. I love cooking. I think that whenever I get to a new city, whenever I relocate, the very first thing I do is I find a grocery store and I go and I make myself like a big dinner because it makes me feel like I'm grounded. That I've arrived somewhere that I know, even if it's a new home for a couple months, it's kind of like my ritual that makes me feel like I am planting a flag in this location for some amount of time and resetting. And the next thing I do is go find a gym or a yoga studio. So my techniques for adapting to new locations, I guess.
All right, and my last question for today is: what are your plans for the future? Where do you see yourself in I don't know, 5 years?
Oh my God. So I mean, obviously, I'll be with Celsius for quite some time. I love Celsius. I love everything about our team. If anything changed in the future, I don't know. I think I would love to do impact investing at some point. I would love to, I think I have a good sense of where I want the world to go. And I would love to have a role in pushing projects forward that really work towards that ultimate goal. I would also probably be on a beach somewhere, wherever I end up. I think I'll probably end up somewhere warm, and abroad. Just not right now. It's just not really in the cards right now. And then finally, I think that I would love to be involved in much more nonprofit work, and just sharing my knowledge with either people in countries that are just growing kind of their financial ecosystem, or maybe even young women in this country that are looking to break into tech as a whole or finance fintech particularly. So I think that at some point, you know, you get to a point where you want to give back and you want to see you want to share your like skills beyond just, you know, yourself and making yourself money. And I think Alex has taught me that a lot. Like Alex has taught me a lot about that you're most successful when your heart is in it and not just, you know, your brain is constantly focused on how do I make my next dollar. And I think that that's an endless well of passion that when you tap into it, it's like a drug.
Yeah.
Like when you start doing it for everybody else, you feel so good all the time. And so I think that wherever I am in 5 years, hopefully I'm doing something that is heart heavy, like involves something that can help other people.
Yeah, I must say, great plans. I will keep my fingers crossed for you.
We'll save the world.
Yeah,
It's gonna be great.
yeah, and basically that's all the questions I have prepared. So thanks so much for your time. It's been great.
Yeah.
I think it will be the longest High Heels of Bitcoin episode in the history.
You have to edit this to some extent. I can talk for hours. Like everybody's gonna watch this and be like, "Wow, I should never get in a coffee like a small space with Leah."
But
she can talk my ear off.
Yeah, but I am pretty sure people will love it. So yeah, now I have to edit it and code it and then publish it. Okay, so once again, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. This was incredibly awesome. I think what you're doing is so important to the space as a whole, and I'd love to do it again sometime.
Yeah, and about that, I'm planning, I did it once before, I'm planning some DeFi discussion panel of ladies, like 3 for ladies and me. So so feel invited. Yeah,
that would be awesome. We can all do socially distanced panels.
So
I think that when you get a bunch of girls together on a panel and you just like let them go, there's like such awesome ideas that come out of it. Just based on my experience of like having dinners at conferences with a bunch of girls, like I wish someone would have recorded us at that point.
Yeah, last time it was great. There was no main topic. It was like just loose discussion about many different things, crypto and not crypto. Yeah, and it was great. So we have to do it some time ago, once more ago, again. Sorry. All right. So once again, thanks so much and see you around.
Thanks.